सुधाधारासारैश्चरणयुगलान्तद्विगलितैः प्रपञ्चं सिञ्चन्ति पुनरपि रसाम्नाय महसः अवाप्य स्वां भूमिं भुजगनिभमध्युष्टवलयम् स्वमात्मानं कृत्वा स्वपिशिकुलकुण्ठे कुहरिणी.
Very nice, ma. Thank you. Sudhadhara saraihi charanayugalantar vigalitaihi prapanchan sinchanti punarapi rasamnaya mahasah. So this is in continuation of what Adi Shankara was presenting the idea of the Kundalini in the previous shloka. The same idea is presented today. Today is also the last Adi Vellikkiramai, right? This is the last Friday of the Adi month. And we also spoke briefly about the Adi Perukku, when the Kaveri river overflows during this month, and it is celebrated as a significant event. There's a lot of celebration around the Kaveri river, and whoever is associated with the tradition, there is a certain celebration, there is a certain recognition of this overflowing of the river. Now, overflowing of the river is always considered to be something of a symbol of prosperity. We also said similar to Pongal, right? Pongal, the word Pongal comes from the fact that in Tamil, Pongardu abdingiraduna, which means it is overflowing. Overflow means Pongardu. So the Pongal word term is also associated with that. And similarly, this Adi Perukku, this month, the river overflows. And there's a similar idea here also, Adi Shankara is presenting. And this overflow is like an overflow of a torrential, it's a torrential flow. So what he's saying in the first line, Sudha Dhara Asarehi. Sudha Dhara, it is a Dhara. Dhara means a stream, a continuous stream. In fact, in Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, the 8th one is called, the 6th one, the 6th Anga is called Dharana. Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So Dharana, Dhara, there also the term Dhara comes. And Dhara means that which continuously flows, which flows without a break. And this flow happens in and usually the comparison is shown with oil, not so much with water, because oil, you will see that when oil flows, when you pour oil from one vessel to the other, there's absolutely no interruption. When water flows, you'll have water bubbles, and there'll be air and all of that, and then you'll still have some interruption in the flow of water. Unless the flow is torrential, then there is completely no interruption. But when there is oil, that flows, it flows seamlessly, uninterrupted. So dharana, the idea of dharana is that when the mind is fixated on something continuously without a break. Right? And of course, dhyana is when you transcend that I am thinking of the object and all that remains is the object. And samadhi is you completely dissolve. So dharana is, the term dhara is also used here. He says, but it's the dhara of nectar. It's a nectar. Dhara asaraihi, which means it flows like a torrent with so much of force, gushing. Yugalantar vigalitaihi. From where is this flowing? It is flowing, O mother, from your feet. Yugala antar vigalitaihi. It is trickling down. So it is flowing, and then visualize her feet, and then it's flowing from between the toes of mother's feet. You can imagine how it feels when you walk into the Garbhagraha of Tirupati. In Tirupati, a very nice idea that they have done. See, usually in temples, you have to go and wash your feet at some place and then go into the Garbhagraha. But in Tirupati, they have done very beautifully. Because to manage the crowd, it's difficult to go someplace, wash your feet, and come back to the queue. So what they've done is, when you get closer to the Garbhagraha, there is water that's flowing on the ground. They have water that flows from one side to the other, and you actually, while you're walking on the water in and your feet are getting cleansed in the process. So that's a very nice way of helping devotees clean their feet while they go into the Garbhagraha. But imagine that way, right? Like your feet is there in the water, mother's feet, Devi's feet is there, and then there's water, there's Sudadhara, a stream of nectar flowing from her feet. And then he goes on to say, Prapancham sinchanti punarapi rasamnaya mahasaha. And then, so this is a little, we have to understand it in a certain sequence. The whole thing, what it says is that you, from your feet, there is this Sudadhara, nectar flowing, and it's infusing my body. And then once you've reached your place, which is described in the scriptures, which is you're flowing down from the Sahasrara. Prapancham sinchanti punarapi rasamnaya mahasaha avapya swam bhumim bhujaganibhamadhyushta swamatvanam kritva swapishikula kunde kuharini. So this whole idea is how Kundalini Shakti rises, goes up to the Sahasrara. From the Sahasrara, then it flows down through the whole body. When you touch the Sahasrara, when the Kundalini Shakti touches the Sahasrara, it meets with the Shiva, the consciousness there. Energy meets consciousness, and then it generates a certain state of joy, ecstasy, and that ecstasy flows throughout the body, right? This body that's made of prapancham, of 5 elements, it flows through the body. That rasa flows through the body, and then it comes and settles down again in the Muladhara. Having reached Avapya Swam Bhumim, so it goes up there, then it comes back with Shiva. So the whole idea is Shakti rises up through the Kundalini, through the spinal column. That energy rises up through sadhana. As you do more and more sadhana, the energy rises up and it touches Sahasrara. Once it touches Sahasrara, then there is this blossoming of consciousness, the understanding. And when that happens, the whole thing, there is this ecstasy and joy that you feel, and it fills your body. It fills your body, it flows down, and all parts of your body is filled with that ecstatic experience. And then this Kundalini goes and settles down again in your Muladhara. Avapya Swam Bhumim Bhujaga, in a serpent, as though like a serpent. Adhyushta Valayam. Adhyushta is 3.5. Valayam is coil. In the 3.5 coil, it goes and settles down. It's like, imagine it's a snake that's going down and it coils in the Muladhara. Assume there is a small lingam in the Muladhara. So the snake is coming down. It coils around this linga 3.5 times and then turns its face upwards and sits like this. This is how the Kundalini is described as a Shakti. And what it also shows here is the process of creation. So when we took this form, there is a time when energy entered into this mass of flesh. During this 9-month period, while we were in the womb, there is a period when energy entered into the body, consciousness entered into the body. And it is described as consciousness entered through the spinal column. From the Sahasrara, it enters into the spinal column of the fetus. It goes into the Mooladhara, and in the Mooladhara, it makes a 3.5. It's like a serpent. How does a serpent go into a hole? It always goes head in first, correct? It goes head in first. So imagine this energy, Kundalini Shakti, at the time of our fetal situation. We are in a fetal condition. When we are in the formative stage, energy enters the body through the spinal column like a snake, serpent, goes down to the Mooladhara, makes a 3.5 coil around the Mooladhara, assuming there is a small linga there, and then it turns and keeps its head up, waiting to rise. This is the description of the energy that is within our system. And as we live through our lifetime, at various times, this energy rises within us. The same Kundalini energy rises within us. And it rises depending on, now, how far does this Kundalini energy go up? Or how far that snake, that serpent turns and stays, how far does it go up, depends on the sadhana that we have done in our previous lifetimes and what we are born with. So if we have done sufficient sadhana in the previous lifetimes, it will go down, the energy will go down, coil around, and then turn and then rise up to that much level, as much as sadhana we have done. So if you have done enough sadhana to bring the Kundalini up to the Anahata, which is your heart chakra in the previous lifetime, then the energy will come, and that is why it will come and establish itself down and then rise up till the Anahata. For some, it will come and rise up till the Manipuraka. For most people, it will be somewhere in between the Mooladhara and the Swadhisthana. Right? And these are described in the scriptural works, like which one was that? The Shat Chakra Nirupana and some other works like this. This is the experience of a yogi. He experiences the Kundalini that rises this way. Now, how is the what does it mean that it comes to a certain chakra and establishes itself there? Means, suppose I have done enough sadhana in my previous life to raise my Kundalini, then when I am born with the subsequent body, the Kundalini comes and establishes itself at that chakra, until which I have evolved myself. Which is why in human beings, you see human beings who are very close to, assuming human beings are evolved from animals, on one hand you have human beings who are very close to animal living. So their focus is all on basic instincts, basal needs, eat, procreate, sleep. That's all they do, most people. And they have aspirations, but it's essentially around the physical survival. That is where their interests lie. That is on one end of the spectrum. And then you have on the other end of the spectrum, you have yogis, you have jnanis, you have realized beings. So these guys are also human beings. Those guys are also human beings. Now, what is the difference? There is a vast spectrum that is there between the two. Correct? And it's difficult for us to know by just looking at somebody. Just by looking at someone, it's hard to say at what stage of evolution that individual is. He may look like a human being. Even in animals, you will notice some animals appear, or when you interact with some animals, the same. It may be a dog. Some dogs may be very wild and very very animalistic tendencies. Some dogs may be refined in the way they interact, engage. So all of these, the whole spectrum is there. So how does the spectrum how is the spectrum appearing this way? Is because each one, based on what they have done earlier, they are born with those preconditions, and your starting point is determined by that. Like how Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan tells him, don't worry, Arjuna. Arjuna worries that, what if I forget all this that you're teaching? Bhagavan says, don't worry, you will not forget this. All this Brahmajnana that you have received now, in whatever lifetime you wish to reignite it, it will be there and available for you. Right? So, sorry, Mama?
Yoga Prashta, yeah.
Yoga Prashta, Ama. Correct. So, he says there will be no such thing as you will not receive that knowledge. It's gone into you. In the same way, like how the Kundalini is gotten in and there is this energy that has risen within you, that level of attainment that you've achieved in a previous lifetime continues. It becomes your starting point. And that is why you have, in some cases you have, and this is true for any field, not just spiritual realization, which is why you have child prodigies. There are children who are born with very, very advanced talent. They're very young, right? And you wonder where they got it from. The parents may not have it. Parents wouldn't have any such. In fact, there was a recent interview of a child that I saw in some YouTube documentary. The mother is saying that no, not a documentary. I think one of our friends was saying this. His friend's son is so involved in Shiva worship. He's about age 6 or 8. That boy, he's so devoted to Shiva. He wants to go to Mount Kailash, and he's telling his parents, "I want to go to Mount Kailash and I want to spend time there." Age of 8, this boy is saying this. And the parents are saying, we don't go to temples, we don't do puja, we don't do any of this, we don't. எங்களுக்கே தெரியல இப்படி ஒரு பையன் பிறந்திருக்கான். We don't know how such a boy is born to us. So clearly the parents have not inculcated into the child. The child has got this from somewhere. It's his prarabdha, his samskara, that he's brought it forward. And such strong samskaras, such strong. In fact, at the age of 8, whatever, he is so kattar. How do they say that? He's so devout to Shiva. He does not look at any other deity. He does Vishnu, Krishna. No. He would say, "Don't take me to a Krishna temple." If you go to a Krishna temple, he stands outside. It's only Shiva. So children, I mean, this is an example to show how some of these things that we carry with us determines what is our present condition. That's a starting point. Not necessary that that's got to be the way it is, right? It doesn't have to be that way. That's a starting point. But you have the ability to push it forward in this lifetime. You have the ability to push it forward by sadhana, by devotion, by bhakti, by nama sankirtana, by dhyana, by breathing, different kinds of breathing methods that are there. Do that, and then also there are various tantra methods of tantra that's available. Whatever, there are so many varieties of methods that are there, tools and techniques that are there. By that, our consciousness rises. So what is happening in the process is your consciousness is becoming subtler and subtler and subtler, which means that which was engrossed and heavier because of its association with the material, it becomes lighter and lighter, and the association of it with the material becomes lesser, and it becomes subtler. The association of it becomes more with the spirit. So this is the going up of the Kundalini, right? So what happens when the Kundalini goes up? It goes up and it touches the, and it goes up, rises up the spinal column, and it touches the Sahasrara, which is the seventh chakra here. So it starts from Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipuraka, Anahata, Vishuddhi, Agnya, Sahasrara. The seventh one. So when the Kundalini or the energy rises up, as the energy rises up, your consciousness becomes subtler and subtler and refined and refined. And when the energy hits the peak at Sahasrara, your consciousness is very subtle, and it's become very subtle, which is Shiva. That is called a Shiva in that context. And that in the Sahasrara, when there is Shiva there, the Shakti goes and meets Shiva. And when it meets Shiva, what it creates is ecstatic states within us, states of joy, right? And this state of joy is described as Sudhadhara Saraihi. It's described as nectar flowing. And what happens? It's like, imagine like a fountain. Fountain, what happens? There is water that goes up the pipe, and then when it reaches the top, it then flows out like that. Where does it flow out? Back into the pond. It flows back into the pond or the fountain container. It flows back. And then again it flows in. And again it flows out and flows in and flows out. So visualize in the same way, this energy flows in through the spinal column, and then when it hits the Sahasrara, then like a fountain, it flows throughout the body. Prapancham sinchanti, infusing all the elements of your body. When it means body, it means this whole individual being that we are made of five. Prapancha, that which is created from five. The Pancha Mahabhuta, Pancha Karmendriya, Pancha Jnanendriya, Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta. All of this, when they, the Bahishkarana and the Antakarana, all of that is infused with this Sudha Dhara, nectar. And this is the knowledge that is there in the Amnaya Mahasaha. This knowledge is there in the Upanishads. So what he says is, this is what you experience, the knowledge that is experienced through the Upanishad literature or the Upanishad scriptures. This is the experience of that. When you read the Upanishads, you get intellectual understanding. When you do sadhana, you get experiential understanding. And when you get experiential understanding, that stays with you for much longer. That stays with you for much longer, or rather, that is what becomes your nature. It becomes your being. Right? How do I know what I am? Is determined by the situations and the consequences that keep occurring in our life, and how I react to it is essentially an indication of how I am and what I am. Right? So I see Gayatri is asked, how do we know our starting point? So what you are is, by self-reflection, you'll know what you are, whether you are gentle, or you're agitated, or you remain guilty, or you are joyful, or you're anxious, or you're always grumpy. How you respond to the world, how do you react to the world, is essentially an expression of what you are carrying from the past. Correct? I just look at myself, I will know where I am, what I am. All it requires some amount of introspection. I look at myself. Do I get attached to everything? Do I get emotionally anxious about everything? Do I take blame for everything and I become guilty? Do I look at the world and say everything else is great, I am the one only suffering? All of these things are, when you just look at oneself, we will recognize the way we respond to events and people and situations in life. We will recognize where we operate. And with the right intention, we keep persisting. The right methods, the right techniques, the right teacher, the right guru, the right text, the right guidance will come in. And we take and we stay persistent and consistent with it. And slowly we will move up. Now, we wouldn't know which part of us we need to cleanse, which part of us we are excellent with. It's hard to figure out that degree. It's very difficult to figure out the degree. But generally, what will happen is, as you get into some kind of sadhana, some kind of regular practice, spiritual practice, you will see aspects of you getting cleansed. Aspects of us will get cleansed. Suddenly, some situations will arise in our life when you're so very devout and you're going strong on your spiritual sadhana. You will see aspects will keep generating around in your life, which will put you in a situation where you have to study your response to it. On the spiritual path, one of the most important things is to be aware of how you respond to things. That awareness is extremely critical, because your spiritual process is inviting certain situations in life. Like a beautiful example, I remember in a movie, I remember the scene. There is this lady who's had a difficult time with her life. She's sitting at a bar, and then this is a movie where God appears to her, but not as God, but he appears to her like a janitor in the bar. So he's walking around like a janitor cleaning the bar, and he comes and meets the woman, and then he says, what happened? Why do you look so low? Then she narrates her life story, and then he says, if God comes to you, what will you ask? Right? What will you ask him? You'll say, give me. Then she says, I'll ask him to give me strength. Give me give me the ability to withstand whatever, so give me moral, physical, and emotional strength. Then he says, when you ask God for strength, what do you think God gives you? Or you ask God for give me, I want patience. What does God give you?
Give you troubles to face.
He'll give you situations to exhibit patience. He'll give you situations to to He'll give you situations where you can portray patience, understand what patience is and portray it. If you're asking for strength, he'll give you a situation which will make you stand up strong. That is what it is, right? There's nothing called here, come take strength. Like in that the Thiruvalayadal movie, Thiruvalayadala எந்த படம் அது? Saraswati Sabadam. Durga Lakshmi Saraswati come and give blessings to 3 different people, and then one becomes very strong, one becomes very eloquent in speech. It's not like that. It's not something that's given to you suddenly, and then you will be given a situation, and then how you stand up to that situation determines what is your strength and how strong you are. So when you are in the spiritual path, when you are very, very focused and you put your energies towards spiritual growth, spiritual understanding, situations will come which will help you exercise those qualities within you, those gunas. So the whole idea of Kundalini rising is about the processes within us becoming more and more subtler. Am I more compassionate to people around me? Am I more I'm not saying you become weak. Am I a little more kind in the way I speak, in the way I communicate, in the way I forget the way you interact, just the way you see people. When I see somebody, am I kind in my heart? Is there something that there is a certain kindness that comes in me? When I and it's not about, as I said, it's not about exhibiting weakness, right? You start becoming so kind to everybody, people treat you as a doormat. No, it's not necessarily about engagement. It's necessarily about what rises within you. When I see clearly there's an earthquake that happened in Turkey. You can't do anything about it, right? Thousands of people died. But does a little prayer go out from your heart? Whenever you're in a position where there's tremendous competition, right? We work, we study, whichever field we are in, there's tremendous competition. Do we allow a little bit of that to not impact us? And we don't fall into that. Do we let that go? Because some of these things will have long-term impact on us. We may fight in the competition, but then at the end of the day, we may end up drained. By letting go at some point, some places, we become spiritually strong. So do we constantly think about how do we enable that spiritual strength within? Right? So as this Kundalini rises, do we become subtler and subtler? And do I now become more sensitive to energies around, things that are happening around? Do I sense the presence of some divine entity that is surrounding me? Am I able to invoke that presence in my life all the time? All of these are signs that show that your Kundalini is rising slowly. Are you becoming more patient with the world? Are you becoming less entangled with the world? The less entanglement with the world, you will know that you are slowly growing within. Are you getting more independent within you? All of these things, when we study within ourselves, we would have seen over the years as we grow, we will see, am I becoming more sensitive? Somebody's coming and sharing something. Am I becoming a little sensitive? Just listen to them, maybe, right? You don't have to do something necessarily, but just even listening to them. And very important, when you become subtler, understand you're not becoming weaker, you're becoming more inclusive, and you're becoming significantly strong within. You're becoming very strong. Why you're becoming very strong is because nothing on the outside can shake you. Which means if somebody is coming and sharing their problems with you, you're listening to them, doesn't shake you. If somebody is coming and praising you, doesn't shake you. Correct? So all of these processes, when we constantly, spirituality is nothing but that. Every day there must be something within us that evaluation should be there. In fact, my guru would say, Swami Shivananda in his ashram will put, he had a, in fact, those who have studied the Tattva Bodha would know this. There are sadhana chatushtaya, viveka, vairagya, samadhamadi, shatka sampatti, mumukshatva. These are the four it's called sadhana chatushtaya, the four basics of sadhana. So in the samadhamadi shatka sampatti, there are 6 different qualities. And he would say, write down these 6 qualities and every day evaluate how you are faring against each of this. How do you fare against each of this? So in that way, in fact, even Paramahansa Yogananda, Gurudev Paramahansa Yogananda says this, keep a spiritual diary. And it's not about how the world is treating you. It's not about how the world is doing things. A lot of times we also go into the situation where we say, I am doing all of this, but at the end of the day, what is happening? I am getting ill-treated. People are coming and bashing me. I am only getting a bad name. I am not getting anything that I do happens to be wrong. We also go into that pity, self-pity modes. நான் எவ்வளோ ட்ரை பண்ணாலும் நான் தான் தப்பு. சில பேர் when you have a conversation or a debate, ஆமா எல்லாத்துக்கும் நான் தான் தப்பு அப்படின்றவா. You know, in their heart, they clearly don't want to accept that they are தப்பு. If they are. But it's a way of saying. They'll say that because they are in a situation. So what happens is the mind. When I'm saying they, it means the mind. Everybody, all of us go through this. The mind is telling you somewhere that you are falling short of your own expectation and you are not able to deal with it. And so you want to hold the world to blame. You want to hold the world to blame. So in this notes that we take of our spiritual diary, these are things that we should evaluate. When we say Kundalini rising, it's not like a great it's not a fantastic thing, right? It sounds like a great, oh, there's energy rising, and then you suddenly start dancing and you do all of that. None of those things will happen. We see some videos like that, right? People jump off their seats and none of those things will happen. Are you becoming disengaged from the physical and engaged with the spiritual? And mind you, the more you become engaged with the spiritual, the stronger that you become. And whenever there is a tear, so when you are more closer to the physical, imagine this other thing. When we feel tears come for different reasons, right? When we feel sad about ourselves, we get tears. When we feel helpless, we get tears. When we feel blessed, we get tears. Right? So as you become subtler and subtler, if at all there is tearing that will happen, this is another way to test ourselves. Am I feeling pity for myself and tearing, or am I feeling blessed and am I tearing? கண்ணில் தண்ணி வருதுன்னா எனக்கு இவ்வளோ கருணை காமிக்கிறிய கடவுளேன்னு சொல்லி கண்ணில் தண்ணி வருது that is when you're disengaging from the physical and going more spiritual. Because nobody is going to come from the outside and தடவை கொடுத்து ஓச்சோ நண்டின்லாம் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்க மாட்டா யாரும். Nobody is going to keep doing that. And somebody does that, then they're only fooling you. As one guru says, do you want solace or solution? Choose. நாய் குட்டிக்கு இப்படி தடவி கொடுத்துட்டு அப்படியே பண்ணிட்டு திருப்பி போயிடுவது. If that is what you want, சரி, maybe that is what you'll get. சும்மா தடவி கொடுத்துட்டு வச்சோன்னு பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கலாம். But if you want solution, if you're looking for a solution, then you have to be strong. We have to grow strong. And the more subtler we become through this process, through the rising of the, that is what is the rising of the Kundalini. And we can notice it within ourselves. Compared to a month ago, where am I now? Compared to a year ago, where am I now? Compared to 5 years ago, where am I right now? And like we said in Aditya Hridayam, Dvadashatman Namostute, the cycles of 12, we should try to break all cycles that are there. Any cycle, anything that repeatedly that's happening within us, we should try to break out of it. Because cycles only keep you held in one place. It is like going to the gymnasium, the what is that called? The treadmill cycle. You keep riding it for hours together. You will lose weight, but you will be in the same place. You will not go anywhere. So this dhara that is flowing, Sudha Dhara, Adi Shankara is saying, is a blissful, an ecstatic feeling, and you carry it with you all the time. And then Devi, once she comes up, reaches Shiva and drenches you completely with her joy and ecstasy. When she comes down, now she comes down with Shiva. Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shaktaf Na Prabhavit. So the whole this thing flow down, Shakti goes up, energy, consciousness becomes subtler, and then it reaches Shiva, subtlest, and then from there it flows down. Shiva and Shakti both flow down as joy, peace, descends as peace. So, and then they go back and she's saying, Swam Atmanam Krutva Swapishi Kulakunde Kuharini. So, you do this and then you go back and you sit into your hole, which is the Muladhara. You sleep in the hole and then you rise up and then you come up and then you go, you flow through. And this is what you keep doing, O Mother. Right? This is what keeps happening within us. Now, within us, for most of us, it happens at different levels. For a jnani, it happens, the highest state of consciousness is revealed to him, where there is no sense of any further yearning. There is no further sense of any want, need. Buddha gave one example. When somebody asked Buddha, why is this world created? Why is there so much suffering? Where am I right now? Questions like that. And Buddha says, do you know that you're suffering right now? He says, yes, I realize I'm suffering. And he says, if somebody has hit an arrow at you and you've got hurt, an arrow has come and hit you, what is the first thing that you'll do? First thing is you will try to rid yourself of that pain that the arrow has caused. Arrow has gone into you. You will try to remove the arrow first. Will you try to do that, or will you try to go and run and try to find out who hit you? So he's saying you're suffering right now. Try to rid yourself of the suffering. Doesn't matter why the world was created, who created, how it got created, why is there suffering? These are irrelevant questions. So, usually, whichever condition, whichever situation we are in, The important thing is the way to go is only forward. That is the resolve that we need to make. That is the sankalpa we need to make. That the only way is forward. And I make that resolution and I stand by that resolution. Let the world go anywhere. See, as I said, the world was there when Vivekananda was there. The world was there when Adi Shankara was there. The world was there when Hitler was there. The world was there when Mussolini was there. The world was there when Ravana was there. The world was there when Rama was there. Doesn't matter to us, right? The world is going to continue to be there. The world was there, is there, it will continue to be there. It doesn't matter which way it is. What matters is what is our sankalpa and our resolve. Right? So in this shloka, he says, Sudhadhara saraihi charana yugalantar vigalitaihi. Oh mother, it flows like it flows from your feet. It's your grace that this Sudhadhara is flowing through me. Prapanchan sinchanti punarapi rasamnaya mahasaha. It fills up my body completely with that grace, joy, ecstasy. Avapya swam bhumim bhujaganibhamadhyuštavalayam swamatmanam kritva swapishikulakunde kuharini. Now, once you've filled me with that ecstasy, you go and settle down back into that Mooladhara, and then you rise up again, and then you fill up. This is your Leela. This is what keeps going on. Right? So that is the 10th verse of Saundarya Lahari. Om Kayena Vacha Manasendriyerva Buddhyatmana va Prakrite Subhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanayeti Samarpayami Sadashivayeti Samarpayami Jagadambikayeti Samarpayami Satgurunathayeti Samarpayami Hari Om Tat Sat Gurubhyo Namaha.